Good afternoon. I'm Ben Anderson, and we are coming live from the Costa del Sol. I'm joined today by my regular contributor, Marcel Salazar, physical therapist, and we're going to be talking about sleep. Finally, a topic I can put into practice. Where are we going to start with this then, Marcel? What's the starting point?
What I actually wanted to do was talk about a little bit of the importance of sleep and
Okay.
what some of the basics, shall we say. So what I would say is one of the very basics is that you need to be, or it is scientifically proven to show that if you can get at least 7 hours sleep a night, it plays and makes a profound difference for you as an individual.
Right.
And the science is particularly aggressive in regards to men. Now, I'm going to get a little bit technical / personal here.
Okay.
If you actually sleep for 4 hours or less per night, it has a genuine physiological effect on your testicles.
Right. Okay.
It can actually reduce. Dave's checking. It can actually reduce the size of your testicles, and that can have an effect on your testosterone levels and all kinds of things, libido, etc. That's just one aspect of it as well.
Right. So that's if you get less than 4 hours sleep a night, yeah?
If you get 4 hours or less, exactly, of consistent sleep, that has a profound effect.
That's me off to the chemist for sleeping tablets.
That's it. Now, I'm going to talk about sleeping tablets because that's another thing that we actually want to try and control and or avoid. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that a bit later on. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that impact around the 4 hour mark. So that's the kind of benchmark. The 4 hours mark it also has an impact on women as well, especially in relation to libido. So if a woman is sleeping much, much less than that, generally speaking, her libido can be significantly reduced as a direct result of just not having enough sleep. But those are just certain aspects of a lack of sleep as well. The other certain aspects that are very important is memory retention.
Okay.
So your brain's ability to restore or maintain new memories and experiences is massively impeded when you have minimized sleep. So you can be affected by up to 70% of memory retention, or you can reduce your memory retention by up to 70% if you're sleeping for 4 hours or less per night. And it's effectively sleep deprivation that affects your brain massively. So it's a very, very powerful and important thing.
Right, but surely, different people have different sort of need for sleep. And, I have
Correct.
known people who really sleep for very short periods. They get up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And how much difference is there, Marcel, between our own, I don't know if it's our metabolic system or whatever it is, but how much difference is there between individuals in the amount of sleep that they, and I'm going to use the word need.
It is much more about their what's called circadian rhythm. So first of all, what is their pattern of their day? So if they're waking up super early, are they going to bed quite early? If they're going to bed at maybe 8 or 9 p.m., they're still getting a fairly decent night's sleep.
Right.
If they're going to bed at 11 or 12 p.m. and then waking up at 4 in the morning, that's a very little amount of sleep.
Right.
I read somewhere that statistically less than 5% of the population can function effectively on 4 hours or less of sleep. I believe that Margaret Thatcher was one of those.
She was one, yeah.
Less than 4
I was
hours.
just going to say that to you. And see what happened with Dennis. Hey, he wasn't obviously an issue going on there.
I was going to say, arguably, what you may have two sides of the coin as to how effective and how healthy it was for her to do that, depending on whether you believe what she was up to. But yes, she was famous for that. And there are some people who can function cognitively as well, because that's the other thing that a lack of sleep does. It massively impedes your cognitive ability to think and process certain things in a more complex way. Yeah. So it's for most people, it's a massive disability to not have enough sleep. And that's why very often, for example, new mothers get very easily confused, cloudy-headed, forget stuff because their sleep is so massively impeded with a newborn baby. The older we become, sometimes we don't sleep as much, and therefore our memory, not just because of mental degeneration, but also because of the lack of sleep, our body just doesn't, our brains, are just not retaining the same level of information as we did was when we were sleeping better. So it's not just the aging process,
right?
Plus the connection to other mental health issues such as Parkinson's and so on, and Alzheimer's, etc. But that's another huge topic.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think I was thinking the same thing as Dave there about Margaret Thatcher. It certainly didn't seem to affect her testicles.
No, in fact, it made them bigger. I think it made them actually bigger. And that's fine. And like I said, she's in the tiny 5% of people that can function effectively and grow testicles from a female condition. Now, obviously, we don't know how she identified. She may have identified differently, but let's not assume her gender.
She had bigger ones than Dennis, bless her. That's what I couldn't get over. I mean, he must have been a nightmare.
Everyone knew that. Well, we don't actually know what it was like in their bedroom. We're assuming that obviously she had bigger ones than Dennis. But Dennis, he could have owned that room. Who knows?
I don't want to think about that. That's not an image I want to think of.
I bet there was whips and bondage and all sorts in there with old Maggie. I bet there was all sorts.
I mean, it must have been limitless. The power conflict. Imagine it just had to be limitless. It's unbelievable.
She'd have Zoom call with Reagan at the same time so he could watch. He was like, "Oh, come
here." There wasn't any video calling, of course. So, there was no visuals, but it was, he could have been on the phone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Marcel, I think, what you're describing, I think is more or less familiar to us, that, we need a certain amount of sleep to function well when we're awake. And I think, we can all relate to times where we haven't been sleeping very well. And you get up in the morning, you've had a really bad night's sleep, and you do struggle just to get through the day sometimes, to sort of, I would say, get into gear,
Yep, absolutely. And there's a couple of factors in relation to when you wake up in the morning that play a big impact on that. So duration of sleep is one thing, but the other thing is the quality of the sleep. Again, huge area, not something we've got enough time for in the show, but what in a nutshell, if you're not sleeping enough, you're not able to go through the different stages of sleep that are fundamental for your brain's ability to basically compartmentalize your experiences from when you were awake.
Right.
And that's effectively what your brain is doing when you're sleeping. When you're sleeping, it's filing away all of these memories and disregarding the ones that are less important, or putting things in a certain order. And a big part of it is the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that obviously does all that filing, storage, and organizing as well.
All right.
But anyhow, it's hugely impacted by the duration spent asleep. And if you can get that crucial 7 hours, it makes a big difference to most people.
Just a thought here, Marcel. You're just actually down the road from me at the moment, but we're in the south of Spain, and it is still customary for some people, especially not so much in winter, but especially in summer, to have their siesta in the afternoon. Do you think that sort of fits in well to some of the things that you're saying?
Okay.
Or
So that's quite interesting, because it depends on what you look at. So if you are reading certain things, some of the more current ones are saying that everything should be done at night in terms of overnight.
Right.
Because the brain needs darkness. So, for example, in a bedroom, you ideally want your bedroom to be as dark as possible so that you can get into the deepest sleep possible. So your brain does all the things we just mentioned. However, what we know about the general health of Latin countries, particularly Spain, which is currently classified as one of the healthiest countries in the world, is that the contribution of napping helps, particularly with older individuals.
Okay.
So older individuals, that's where it's quite useful, because at night, older individuals tend to sleep a little less, but they can kind of play catch up with the naps. But at the same time, if we come back at the duration thing, a nap, generally speaking, doesn't tend to last more than 1 to 2 hours maximum. Depending on who you are, of course, and what you've got to do. Some people might nap for the rest of the afternoon. But if you are napping, and napping classically is an hour or two maximum, that's generally speaking not enough time for the brain to go through its processes in order to fully reset, reorganize, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that is, unfortunately, if you look at it from a physiological standpoint and the mental health standpoint, currently it suggests that it's not the best way to do it. But I think people have been doing it for hundreds of years, millions of years, and it's worked well for them. So again, on an individual basis, if it makes you feel better and you feel more lucid after this nap, and there is the argument about power naps, which are ranging between 20 and 30 minutes in duration. Those are supposed to be very, very effective as well.
Right.
But certain conditions apply with those in relation to, what are they called? Stimulation absence or something, where you go into a pod and they're completely silent and completely black.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm not a fan of siestas or naps during the day at all.
Right.
If I do happen to, I don't know, doze off after lunch or something, I wake up feeling awful and grumpy, and it takes me about 2 hours to sort of feel normal again,
Yes, exactly. And that's because you've interrupted your brain's processing.
Right.
You see? So that's the problem with it. You've started to go into these different levels of sleep depth. And if you get woken up earlier, then you're basically a bit like a cold engine, and you're kind of stumbling around and a bit foggy and a bit grumpy and moody and so on. And that leads us on to the next thing about sleep deprivation as well, which is two very important things, which is mood and immunity.
Okay.
So your mood is greatly affected by a lack of sleep. So anyone who's had children, anyone who's a parent, anyone who's met a parent or a newborn family will know that person is not best poked or irritated in even the slightest way.
Right.
If you're a husband, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've had children and your wife has been somewhat sleep deprived, you are risking your life and those potentially of those around you. And now maybe I'm more extreme because I'm married to an Eastern European. I don't know what it is, but if she's sleep deprived, my life and certain parts of my body will be in great danger if she hasn't slept well, and I breathe perhaps too loudly in her space. Within a meter or two of her area, then, and I mean personal, not any area in particular, then that may be enough of a trigger to require some sort of physical outlet. But anyway, the point is, sleep is very important for mood, and it can greatly impact on, if a person is particularly grumpy, one of the simplest reasons for that could be the fact that they're not getting enough sleep.
Right.
There are obviously other factors, of course, but your general mood upon waking up will be affected by how much sleep you've had as well. As you said, if you haven't had enough of a nap, you just feel a bit more grumpy. Same thing would happen overnight. If you didn't get enough sleep, you wake up, you're very easily grumpy because you're just not feeling good at all.
Right. Okay. So we are going to talk about, sleep positions and various other things, but, are there things that we can do to try to maximize the possibility, at least, of getting a good night's sleep? What kind of advice would you give for that?
100%, absolutely. So some of the best things you can do is stay hydrated.
Okay.
Which sounds weird because I know a lot of people tend to get up to go to the toilet and so on if you're well hydrated. Unfortunately, it's a necessary evil. But in addition to that, one of my favorite things to say, and I said it in every single show, exercise.
Okay.
If you exercise at some point in the day, you are much more likely to feel sleepy at night. That's just logical. It's just the way that our bodies are made. We're supposed to feel tired when we go to bed. And if you feel physically tired, as opposed to just mentally tired, which can be the case if you've been working on the computer or watching television, or even reading is much more relaxing than any of those other things. So reading is fine. But if you're being stimulated in some way, just visually and in your brain, such as through a screen or a TV, your body is not tired, and that can result in your brain continuing to function whilst you're trying to go to sleep. That doesn't include the impact of blue light and whether or not that actually affects the brain as an activator, which is why they say never look at a screen, ideally 30 to 60 minutes before you want to go to sleep.
Right. And this blue light, I mean, I've read about it and whatever, but is that something that is not perceptible to the eye, but that is actually generated by these on the various screens that we look at, whether it's tablets or phones and things like that? Yeah.
Correct. So the distribution of light from technology, and I'm a bit of a tech fan. If anyone knows me, I can get into a bit more detail, but I don't want to here. Your screen is obviously showing you all the colors of the spectrum. And in order to create sharpness and perhaps a little brightness to the screen, it will combine blue light.
Okay.
And that blue light is perceived by the eyes, of course. And I mean, if you have a smartphone, your smartphone will very likely have a setting that is called eye comfort or disengage blue light or something like that. And what you'll notice is the screen goes more yellow.
Okay.
And that more yellowy color is easier on the eyes, but also calms down the brain's stimulation. So the more blue light there is, the more stimulated the brain is, and the more alert you are. So that is the danger of blue light, looking at blue light prior to trying to get to sleep, because your brain is effectively being activated by the blue light coming through your eyeballs.
Right.
If you minimize that blue light, it makes a big difference. If you don't look at a screen at all, that makes a huge difference.
Right.
So it's worth experimenting with, particularly if you struggle to get to sleep at night. It's exercise and potentially a screen, which we're all now much more commonly using in bed, unless you're actively trying to avoid it by reading a book or just giving yourself time to relax. And there is another... Go on.
No, is this blue light thing, is this specifically for personal devices like phones and tablets, or does this apply as well to, I don't know, if you've got a 52-inch TV?
Please say Sally when you were going out with that one then.
Yeah, I was going to say 52-inch. Well done, Bill. Well done.
It's just that I know somebody that's got a 52-inch TV.
Thank God for that.
How often do you find yourself looking at it? That's fine. So the blue light, yes, the blue light comes from anything that's emitting light.
Right. Okay.
Digital. So screens, watches, phones, everything. Everything has a blue light emission. And if you're looking at your laptop before you go to bed, that's going to be doing it, unless you've actively got a blue light screen or filter on it. It's going to be your phone, of course, your watch if you have a smartwatch. So it's coming from everywhere. And that's the point, is that we tend to go to sleep because that obviously comes from, well, the origin of that, maybe I should explain. We get that from the sun, right? Our brain is activated by the rising of the sun.
Right.
So when the sun comes up, when we see that, even through our eyelids, it's a trigger for our brain to start waking up. And then when we see it up in the sky during the day, we are, in theory, supposed to be more alert, because that light
Mm.
going through our eyes and stimulating our brain. Once the sun goes down, and generally as it goes down and goes beyond the horizon, it gets darker. And that's when our brains start preparing for the process of going to sleep.
Right.
And that takes a little bit of time.
Here's something for you then. Right? If it's going, I'm being serious now, it's not a joke.
Right? Here we go.
Right? If that's the case, I wonder what happens when you're wearing sunglasses for a long period of time. Because you're not getting as much
light.
You
get very confused.
Do you?
No, because it depends on the sunglasses, because some of them have polarizers, or they have filters on them.
UV filters,
and that takes the strain off. That takes the strain off the eyes, because sometimes, particularly if our eyes are particularly sensitive, if we have a disability, as we age, the eyeballs become more sensitive to that bright light, so the dimness. But because sunglasses are not blacking out the light, they're just dimming it, it's different. If you had blackout sunglasses, or like complete blinds, if you had complete blinds on for about 30 minutes, you'd probably start to feel really sleepy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's
but if
the
you've
idea
got sunglasses
I was going to say, that's the idea with the blindfolds, isn't it, on a plane?
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly what it is. Those soft blinds that you put, or eye covers, or sleep blinds, are exactly for that, so that you can blacken out as much of the light as possible. And if you sleep in a bedroom, this would be another useful tip to try in a bedroom. If you struggle to get to sleep, is if for whatever reason your bedroom is light because you don't have shutters, or you like to sleep with the window open, or something like that, but it's just not very dark in your room, then try sleeping with something over your eyes. And they're very, very easy to get hold of, and they're relatively comfortable, and it can be very effective at really darkening the space that you're in.
Right. Yeah, if there's any pilots' wives out there listening into this show today, don't buy them one of these for Christmas. Because if you're on a plane and your husband's flying the plane and he comes out, ladies and gentlemen, got them on.
Yeah, not ideal.
Where we're going, it's so relaxed, it's unbelievable.
Don't worry, the planes can fly themselves nowadays. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Not even the runway they can't when they're taking off. Can you pull up? 200 miles an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can feel grass coming towards us, let me know.
So, Marcel, I think we're going to take a short break, and I want to really get into this sleeping positions thing when we come back, because I think some of us, wake up with aches and pains in the morning, and it's probably because we've been sleeping in strange positions. So we'll pick that up after this short break.
Around the world.
Welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson. I'm coming live from the Costa del Sol with my good friend and regular contributor, Marcel Salazar. Welcome back, Marcel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We are talking about sleeping. For all the people that panic about, exercise, we're talking about something that everybody can do. We've been talking a little bit, Marcel, about the things that we do before we go to sleep and how they can affect us. But once we're tucked up in bed, what's the problem? Surely our bodies know just what to do in order to sleep.
Yeah, so unfortunately not. So historically, of course, we used to sleep on the ground, and we used to be, we'd have to make do with how we would sleep. But of course, now we're in a modern world, we can find ourselves sleeping on surfaces of any kind that we wish. Now, in terms of personal preference, it's always good to identify what you prefer, whether it be a hard mattress or a soft mattress or somewhere in between. So that's an easy thing for you to try and figure out whether or not you enjoy that from a comfort standpoint.
Okay.
The thing that probably is the most important is going to be your pillow and the temperature of your room.
Right.
So those things are going to be very, very important in terms of ambience or ambiance and the position of your neck. There is one caveat to that in addition, particularly for women, which is you might need to have something between your legs. Now, Dave, before you get involved, before you get involved, let's keep it professional.
Gills, I'm here.
A little bit.
Ring me. If you can't sleep, ring me. Now, seriously, I was going to say, Chase, 0033 977 37 10 69. 24/7.
Quick phone number plug.
Exactly, yeah. I was going to say, is it the Japanese or the Chinese that sleep on a wooden block? They put the head on, they don't have a pillow, do they? They have a wooden block.
That's right. The Japanese, that's right. I know, it's amazing. The geisha sometimes can sleep with a wooden block underneath the base of their skull. It's absolutely, but they're the most disciplined people in the world. I mean, they walk on wooden blocks as well.
Right.
So it's
I mean, they can't be right. That can't be right. Can it walking around with everything?
I mean, that lifestyle, and if you're interested, a geisha is fascinating. That lifestyle, nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that lifestyle is unreal, and they're the most incredible women who are unbelievable. But yes, you're right. They sleep, it's like a wooden stock under the base of the skull, and that you can't imagine how that could be comfortable. But through practice and repetition, you get through it. But whether or not that's good for them or how that affected, I don't think there's been enough research done, so I couldn't tell you.
Now, girls don't want that between the legs, do they?
What's that?
Girls don't want that. Girls and women don't want that between the legs if they're struggling sleep.
No, right? Yes, we've. Thank you, Dave. We've managed to digress really well from women sleeping with something between their legs.
Good. It's good. I think now we should probably have a woman on this show just to balance this out a little bit. But anyhow, the point is, yes, what I mean by this now, in terms of what we should do in bed, let's keep it real. The best thing to do in bed is to sleep and have sex. That's the reality of it, right? And if you do one first, the other one usually comes out pretty well as well. So if you can do that, then that's a good idea to do. But we're talking about sleep today. So what I mean by sleeping with something between your legs, because women generally have slightly wider hips than men, or in some cases a lot wider, then what that means is that when they're lying on their side, and this is for side sleepers, so side sleepers, myself included, it can be more problematic if you don't have enough support, one, between your knees, and two, under your head. Because of course, if you imagine, what you want to do when you're side lying is you want to have your spine in a nice straight line.
Right.
So that means you need a pillow that is large enough to fill the gap between your shoulder and the base of your chin or your head in order to fill that space.
Okay.
So if you have a pillow that is too small, your head is going to be tilted downwards like so if you're on camera. And if it's too wide, then your head is going to be tilted upwards, and you're going to be opening out the neck. And after a long period of time in that one position, it's going to start to stiffen up and become uncomfortable.
Right.
So if you're the type of person that suffers from...
I was going to say, it sticks, because some people I've seen actually walk around like that, don't they? So,
If they're walking around like that or like that, it could be something to do with their pillow. It could be something to do with their spine as well. But it could be something to do with their pillow. And I've been seeing... I don't know if you remember me mentioning, but that I've said in the past that people tend to come into me with the same condition over short periods of time. So if it's lots of back pain, I get lots of back pain patients. If it's neck pain, they all come in together, a bit like London buses. And at the moment, I've been seeing a lot of neck and shoulder issues, and it's all been neck and shoulder, a lot of neck and shoulders. It's not all related to sleep, but the sleep is very important because if they can't sleep, it makes it worse. When they do sleep, it makes it better, but only if their sleep position is good.
Right.
I always will ask, how many pillows do you sleep with? What kind of pillow is it? Is it a very skinny one? Are you a side sleeper? Are you a back sleeper? Do you sleep on your front, etc.? So those positions all play a role. And sometimes it's difficult to know because we obviously don't know where we are when we sleep once we're asleep. But if you can find out, either by asking your partner or how you tend to wake up is how you tend to sleep most of the night, then you can know what kind of a sleeper you are. And if you're a side sleeper, like most people, I would say, are side sleepers, then you need a pillow that supports your head with enough space between your shoulder being on the bed and your head there, so that you're in as neutral position as possible. And if you're a woman, or if you have wider hips than most, or if you've got a hip issue, consider sleeping with a cushion between your knees.
Right.
What that does is it neutralizes the pelvis. So if you imagine standing, most women stand, or most people should stand with their feet ever so slightly apart. Some women tend to stand a bit with their feet closer together, but generally speaking, if you're standing in a straight line, you want to be standing with your feet equidistant apart, just beneath your hips.
Right.
And that loads your hips correctly. When you're side lying, you wouldn't want your top hip, and therefore the top knee, to be falling inwards, because that can then cause some overstretching, some discomfort through the hip itself, and create problems when you do eventually get up, like stiffness or malposition or a little bit of strain or overstressing the muscles. And as we get older, of course, we become less supple, so that becomes a greater problem. So a very simple solution is to try and fall asleep with a cushion between your knees. Now, you can also buy devices that will attach to one leg where you have consistently, because obviously if you move in your sleep, then you're going to lose that cushion, which is very, very common if it's just one pillow. But there are devices you can buy that are particularly good. It's like a half sock, half cushion that you pull up onto your thigh and you keep it in between your legs, and it will stay there regardless of which way you turn and how you align. And those are quite useful. Those are very, very useful.
Yeah.
Remember to take it off, though, when you go out during the day, because it's not a good look with that hanging about in your trousers, is it?
Yeah, it would be a bit weird to have that saddling around. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right, yeah.
But Marcel, I can certainly identify with the pillow thing that you're talking about, because we've kind of settled on the pillows that suit us really well, which I think are latex pillows. The memory foam latex. And
okay, all right, okay.
But when we were, when we've been going away, maybe overnight, especially if we've been driving somewhere, Vicky would often say, "Let's stick the pillows in the car," because very often when you go to places, whether it's a hotel or a B&B or whatever, they've got pillows that are like envelopes. They're about as flat as an envelope.
Yeah.
And I certainly struggle to get a good night's sleep with that. So we very often just stick our pillows in the car.
And that's a very good idea. If you're traveling by car, absolutely take it with you, because the one thing that most people miss when they go on holiday is their bed. Because their bed is obviously, ideally, the most comfortable place that you spend a huge majority, like 1/3 of your life there, effectively. So that's the thing you miss the most, and it will offset your back. If your bed makes your back feel better, generally speaking, sleeping in a foreign bed will probably make it feel bad. But if you can't take your bed with you, but you can take a pillow if you've got good pillows.
Sure.
So finding the right pillow is as important as finding the right mattress.
Right.
So for any listeners that are confused about or get reoccurring neck pain and are concerned about their bed, absolutely consider whether it's something to do with the pillow that they're sleeping on. And I'm the same. If, for example, someone takes my pillow from my bed and I, for whatever reason, don't go and get it, this could be my wife or one of my kids or any number of things, then I will wake up very often because it's not the right pillow for me, because my neck is quite sensitive to sleeping, for example, as a side sleeper. If my head tips too much to one side, it just exposes my neck and makes it feel much stiffer than it should do, and is uncomfortable for me. So It definitely is worth taking a pillow with you, for sure.
So that I understand that perfectly from personal experience. Is there a best position for people to sleep in? You say you're a side sleeper. I would tend to be a side sleeper as well, because if I sleep on my back, I snore. So,
Yes.
But is there a better position, or is it just the position that's comfortable for you?
The good thing is there isn't a better position. It's a position that works best for you. What is most important is if you can control your alignment as best as possible in terms of the position of your head and the position of your hips, and you sleep all night long without pain and you wake up feeling human, then that's the best that you can do, whether that be on your back, whether that be on your side. Some people are even front sleepers, and that just depends. But where you can improve upon certain things, as I mentioned before, is the environment that you're sleeping in. So you ideally want the temperature of your room to be about 18 degrees. Cooler is always better, not warmer.
Yeah.
People sleep better in cooler rooms than they do in hot rooms. But that also doesn't mean that if you can sleep without the AC on, sleep without the AC on. Aside from the environmental impact and your electricity bill, which will be significantly improved, try not to sleep because the air quality is very different. It's a very dry air, usually from AC.
Right.
Because the task of the AC is to actually literally draw moisture out of the air and to cool it down. And dry air is not good for you to sleep in. You actually want slightly more moist air if you can. That's better for you.
Right.
And there is a technique, particularly in the summer. I was just talking about it with my colleague. One of the things you can do is if you have a standing fan or even a roof fan, you could have a fan on, but you also put a large bowl of ice water somewhere near your bed, and it blows in your direction. That will not only blow cool air, it'll blow cool moisturized air as well, evaporating moisturized air. And so that will obviously improve your nasal cavity, your mouth, and obviously going into your lungs as well. There's no need to have dry air when you are sleeping. And if you can avoid the dry air, it helps to keep everything moist in your orifices that you want to keep moist. Dave?
No, I wasn't going there. I was just going to say I'm going to get a swimming. I'm going to get a fish pond in the bedroom. That was all I was going to say. You're going to get a fish pond in there, and everyone's happy, aren't you? Fish are happy. You're happy. Nasals are happy. Orifices are over the moon.
Orifices are happily moist. Exactly. Thank you.
Very much.
Yes.
Exactly.
But I think in that respect, we're quite lucky living down here in one sense, Marcel, because we do have generally very high humidity levels. Now, that causes a problem for us in the winter. But, we have higher air humidity here on the coast than, let's just say, if you were living in Madrid. Or one of the inland cities where it's a very dry heat in the summer. Yeah,
that's correct, and it presents a bit of an issue, much more in the summer.
Yes.
So here for us, and that's because of humidity and heat. So I know from personal experience for sure, if I'm in a cooler room, I will definitely sleep better because I'm very happy to tuck away under the duvet and squeeze in with my wife and get nice and warm so that I stay warm. But if it's very hot, we generally won't have, you'll have the window open, we'll try and have a fan going on, we won't be anywhere near each other because it's just too hot and sticky and so on.
Yes.
And therefore the quality of sleep is just much less because if you're constantly moving or tossing and turning, you don't get to go through those sleep processes. So if it's too hot, then it is unfortunately worse. So if you can maintain a cooler room, then we know scientifically that you will get a better night's sleep.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts? I'm not asking for your personal preferences here, but some people do say that couples should sleep in separate beds, and that improves the quality of sleep for both of them. What do you think about that?
Yeah. That's a good question, actually. I think it depends on the type of sleeper.
Right.
So if, for example, snoring is a huge problem, if the snoring is a problem that the man cannot resolve 100%, the poor wife needs to probably have her own bed.
Right.
Because having ambient noise like snoring is just annoying.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, if it doesn't allow you to get into that sleep pattern, and women generally are much more sensitive to sound, just through instinctually because of babies and all that kind of stuff, they're much more sensitive to sound generally than men are. And so therefore her sleep depth may be affected by rumbling or snoring happening right next door, which is generally quite annoying. But it can obviously happen vice versa. It could be the wife that is also snoring. So that can happen, but some men can sleep through it, so it doesn't affect them.
Right.
But in terms of movement, if there's a lot of movement at night as well, some people are, for example, kickers or spasm things like that. They move a lot in their sleep. And if you ever watched a person in sped up, and there are videos available if you watch them on YouTube, it's quite amusing. If you watch just how much people move at night, it's quite unbelievable. And not only that, it's in addition, some men also, well, no, not some men, all men will also have a function that occurs naturally to them throughout the night as well. So it is really fascinating to see what happens at night. And movement is one of the things. So some people move more than others. And yeah, if you're very sensitive to that movement, or if your mattress, for example, moves a lot, then you could be sensitive to it. But a lot of modern mattresses absorb movement. So if my wife, for example, moves on the other side of the bed, I don't even know about it. So my bed doesn't move.
Well, we had to get a mattress that it was again some kind of very heavy, but memory foam or something like that, because my wife weighs half of what I weigh. And with a kind of sprung type mattress, every time I turned over, she bounced up in the air.
Yeah. And this is why nobody has water beds anymore.
I've never tried a water bed, but I don't fancy it. I have to say.
I don't get that. If you're going to get that, you be a sailor. Bugger that in the house. I mean, what's the point in that?
Exactly. It was a fad thing for sure, but it is a nightmare to sleep on, because the moment anyone moves, you're undulating and pulsing up and down, and it's not comfortable unless you have other means for its purpose. For sleeping, it's rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, you do sound like a man with experience of this, Marcel.
A little too much, perhaps. So we won't go into that detail, but it has its uses. But otherwise, a regular or new bed is very much recommended.
You have to have travel sickness tablets at the side of the bed if you're sleeping on one of them. They're bloody everywhere, right?
Right.
I don't get it.
Exactly.
That noise going on all the time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the risk of puncturing it is always there. So, and those types of things can happen all the time. So, and you don't want to puncture it yourself. You know what I mean?
So, Marcel, our time is almost gone. Can I say thank you again for joining us? And we actually got some serious points through here as well, despite Dave's best efforts.
One or two.
Yeah.
Armbands for a waterbed. That's what you want, a rubber ring.
So, if people want to follow you on YouTube, Physical Therapy, Strong for Life Physical Therapy, you're also on Facebook, Strong for Life, and you have a website.
All you have to do is if you type into Instagram or Facebook /strongforlife.me, you'll find me straight away. ME as in me.
Marcel, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to those who've been listening. I hope you've had fun, but I hope you've also learned something. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back next week. Take care, everyone.